I should have noticed the signs the moment I walked into the dining room. The crystal flutes I'd never seen before. The polished china that only appeared at Christmas. The neatly folded linen napkins resting beside each plate. Even the chandelier seemed brighter, as though it had been instructed to spotlight the occasion. This wasn't just Sunday dinner. It was a stage set for a performance, and I was clearly the last to realize I had been cast in the wrong role. I'm Eden, 32 years old, and for the past 9 years I've worked harder than I ever thought possible to build something that was mine. My house, the one I scrimped and saved for, the one that ate every vacation, every shopping trip, every weekend of overtime, is my sanctuary. At least it was. Across from me sat Marissa, my younger sister. She's 28, beautiful in that effortless way people forgive too easily, and always just one crisis away from moving back in with someone. She thrives on rescues, and my parents are always there to provide them. Tonight apparently was no exception. My father beamed as he poured champagne into the crystal glasses, his grin stretching almost boyishly. My mother hovered beside him, nodding with satisfaction as if everything was falling neatly into place. And Aunt Sarah, ever the co-conspirator, had taken a seat beside them, her expression smug like she already knew how this evening would unfold. Dorothy, my mother's oldest friend, sat quietly at the far end of the table. She looked out of place, shifting in her chair as though she'd been invited for balance, or perhaps as a witness. Her kind eyes met mine once, a silent acknowledgement that she too sensed something was off. The first cork popped, and Marissa lifted her glass delicately, her smile serene. "So," she said, as if she were announcing she'd picked up a new hobby, "next week I'll be moving into your place." I felt my grip on the water glass tighten, my knuckles turning pale. Her words lingered in the air, casual but loaded. She took a sip, her eyes darting briefly to our parents, who nodded approvingly, their glasses raised high. "I've already started packing," she continued, brushing back her hair. "It shouldn't take more than a day or two. Just until I figure things out." I stared at the table setting, realizing suddenly why everything looked so carefully arranged. This wasn't dinner, it was an ambush. My mind flashed back to last week, when I overheard my mother on the phone with Aunt Sarah. It's perfect timing. Eden is so lonely in that big house. At the time I'd dismissed it as idle chatter. Now, with Marissa perched at the head of my table like a queen awaiting her throne, the betrayal crystallized. Everyone raised their glasses as my father declared, "To new beginnings." Everyone except me. Slowly, I set my water glass down, my heart pounding. I reached for my purse, fingers brushing the manila envelope I debated leaving in the car. My hand trembled until it didn't. I placed the envelope squarely on the table. "Actually," I said, my voice calm, "I have news too." For a moment no one speaks. The envelope lies between us like a live wire, humming with a truth none of them expected. I slide the papers out slowly, laying them on the polished wood of the table where the crystal still gleams. "This," I say, my voice steady, "is the sale agreement for my house. I signed it last week. I have 30 days before I move." The silence shatters before Marissa's glass does. It slips from her hand, champagne spilling across the hardwood before the stem breaks in two. She doesn't even notice the mess. Her wide eyes fix on me, her lips trembling. "You, what?" she whispers, as if the words themselves betray her. My father's chair scrapes against the floor as he pushes up to his full height, towering over me. "You can just cancel it," he says, waving a dismissive hand. "There's a cooling-off period for these things. People change their minds." I look up at him, amazed by how easily he reduces my decision, months of tears, numbers and hard choices, into something as simple as returning a sweater. My mother presses her fingers to her temple. "Eden," she says softly, that tone she reserves for wayward children, "this isn't like you. Selling your house on a whim. Sounds unstable. Selfish." Her eyes flick to Marissa, then back to me. "Your sister needs you." Aunt Sarah leans forward, her bracelets clinking. We were going to move Marissa's things in on Tuesday while you were at work. It was supposed to be a surprise. Now you've ruined everything." Marissa's tears finally spill. "You did this on purpose," she cries. "You knew I needed a place to stay, so you sold the house just to spite me." Her accusation lands like a slap. I feel my chest tighten, not with guilt, but with the same exhaustion I've carried for years. No matter what I do, I am cast as the villain. My mind drifts to those nights when the bills were stacked across my kitchen table. The March storm that revealed 3 separate leaks in my roof. $11,000 gone in a flash. April's water line break. Another $8,200. June's heating system failure. The last straw at $5,000 more. Each repair a brick on my shoulders until I was bent nearly in half. I remember eating ramen 3 nights a week, telling co-workers I couldn't join them for lunch because I was too busy. I remember punching new holes in my belt because I couldn't afford smaller clothes. I remember crying quietly after midnight, certain no one would ever understand the cost of keeping that house. And here they are, still painting me as selfish, still rewriting my survival as cruelty. I take a breath, letting the weight of their accusations settle. Then I let it fall away. For the first time I understand. I don't owe them explanations. They've already decided who I am in this story, and nothing I say will change their script. The only choice I have left is whether to accept that role, or rewrite my own. Under the table, I feel a gentle squeeze on my hand. Dorothy leans closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "Good for you," she says. For the first time that evening, I feel the flicker of something warm, validation. A small flame against the cold front of my family. It didn't take long. By Monday morning the storm had spread. Marissa had always been quick with her phone, and this time she used it as her weapon. A carefully crafted Facebook post appeared. "When your own sister sells her house just to make you homeless, family shouldn't treat each other this way." The comments rolled in. Sympathy, outrage, prayers. Cousins I hadn't spoken to in years messaged me, demanding to know how I could be so cruel. By Tuesday, whispers reached my office. 2 co-workers avoided my eyes in the break room. Another asked bluntly, "Did you really kick your sister out?" I laughed it off, but my throat closed tight as I ducked into the bathroom stall. Alone, with the fluorescent light buzzing overhead, I pressed my palms against my eyes until tears burned hot. For a moment I wondered if they were right. Maybe I was selfish. Maybe all those years of independence had hardened me. But then, through the fog of doubt, I remembered the photo. The one of me standing in front of my house, holding the keys, grinning so wide my cheeks hurt. I had been 23, exhausted but glowing, clutching proof that every sacrifice had meant something. That memory steadied me. I wasn't cruel. I wasn't reckless. I had simply chosen survival over drowning. The knock at my door came that evening. When I opened it, my parents stood there with Marissa sandwiched between them. Mascara streaked down her cheeks like war paint. "Eden," my mother began, her voice shaking with indignation, "your sister has nowhere to go. You can't just abandon her." My father's arms folded, his gaze stern. "We raised you better than this. Family comes first." Marissa sniffled, lowering her voice to a practiced whimper. "Why are you punishing me? You've always hated me." The words cut sharper than they should have. But instead of folding under their weight, I found myself standing taller. "Did anyone ever ask what I need?" I asked quietly. The silence that followed was heavier than any accusation. They didn't answer because they never had. Later that week, Dorothy arrived at my door with a casserole dish and a weary smile. "Thought you could use some company," she said. Over dinner, she told me stories of her own family, how she'd spent years being the dependable one until she finally broke free. For the first time I didn't feel so alone. At work, Thomas from accounting stopped by my desk. "If you need help with moving boxes, I've got a truck," he offered casually. The simple kindness nearly undid me. Even my financial advisor called after reviewing my paperwork. "You're making the right decision, Eden. Selling now protects your future." Don't let guilt drag you under. Their voices formed a fragile but growing net beneath me. I wasn't falling, I was being held. But just as the ground steadied, the phone rang. Aunt Sarah's voice was brisk. "We're arranging an intervention. The whole family wants to talk. You need to be there." I hung up, staring at the manila folder on my desk. Inside were the receipts, the bills, the years of sacrifice I'd carried alone. This time I would not show up empty-handed. The family gathered in my dining room for the so-called intervention. I stood at the head of the table, the manila folder clutched in my hands. My palms were dry this time, not trembling, not sweating. I had rehearsed this moment in my mind so many times, and now it was here. One by one, I laid the documents across the table like playing cards in a game they thought I didn't know how to play. "This," I said, tapping the first paper, "is the invoice for the roof, $11,000. Paid in full." I slid it aside and revealed the next. "Here's the water line repair, $8,200. Another sheet. And this one, the heating system, $5,000. The numbers filled the table like heavy stones, undeniable and unmovable. My voice didn't shake. For the first time in years I felt strong. Some of the relatives shifted uncomfortably in their chairs. Dorothy nodded, her face calm but supportive. A cousin glanced at the papers, then back at me with something like shame in her eyes. Even Aunt Sarah, always the loudest critic, had gone quiet. But not my parents. My mother's lips pressed into a thin line, her arms crossed tightly. My father's jaw flexed as though chewing words he didn't dare speak. Marissa fidgeted with her bracelet, her eyes fixed on the table. She wouldn't meet mine. The defiance I expected never came. Instead, she looked small, cornered by truths she couldn't spin into sympathy. I let the silence stretch before I spoke again. "Family should help each other," I said. My gaze swept the table. "But help doesn't mean sacrificing yourself until there's nothing left. I've given my whole life, time, money, energy. And when I finally made a choice for myself, you called it selfish." I straightened my shoulders, breathing deeply. "Well, maybe it is. But it's the kind of selfish that keeps me alive. And from now on, I'm choosing me." No one spoke. For once, the accusations didn't fly. The silence itself felt like victory. 2 weeks later, I unlocked the door to my new townhouse. It was smaller, cozier, and didn't carry the ghosts of resentment in its walls. Thomas helped me carry in boxes. Dorothy brought over groceries and a bottle of wine. And for the first time in a long while, I heard the question I had longed for. "What do you need, Eden?" Felt lighter, freer. My parents stopped calling. Marissa disappeared into the swirl of her own drama. The distance stung, but it didn't hollow me out the way it once would have. I had made peace with it. Because peace doesn't come from keeping everyone else happy. Comes from finally listening to yourself. Setting boundaries is not selfish. It is self-respect. And sometimes, the people who resist your choices the most are the ones who benefited from you having none. Stand firm anyway.